Another rocket alarm, and I'm in a difficult position because there are no shelters nearby. We now have to run to the park, lie down on the ground, and just hope for the best.
Heute hat's geknallt wie an Silvester.
Today it sounded like New Year's Eve, but it was far from joyful. It was threatening. Tel Aviv and the entire region were under heavy fire from Gazan Islamists. The whole day was marked by rockets. I woke up to the news that a friend of mine had lost his apartment to a rocket the previous night. I asked if I could visit the building, and when he agreed, I immediately got in the car. I reached Rishon LeZion after a 20-minute drive.
Das ist eine Stadt, vielleicht 15, 20 Minuten mit dem Auto von Tel Aviv entfernt.
The first thing I noticed was a group of soldiers standing in front of the building, inspecting it, worried it might collapse. You never know how a structure will hold up after a rocket strike. And the impact of a rocket is brutal.
Man weiß ja nie, wie das mit der Struktur nach so einem Raketeneinschlag aussieht.
From the outside, though, it looked like the house was under construction only. You couldn't spot the damage caused by the rockets because the military covered the impact hole with a long blue plastic sheet and 2 Israeli flags, probably to avoid alarming the neighbors.
Wahrscheinlich, den Leuten vor Ort keine Angst zu machen, wenn sie dann dieses zerstörte Haus sehen.
The only people allowed inside the building were residents and their families, granted access to rescue important belongings from the damaged building.
Dass ich auch in die Wohnung hinein durfte. Das allerdings nur für ganz wenige.
Since I knew the owner, and because he introduced me as an extended family member, I was also given permission to enter, unlike some of my colleagues who had to stay outside. My permission, though, was also limited to a few minutes only because the military had yet to determine whether the building was stable or might collapse.
Und eben mal ein paar Aufnahmen davon machen. Hier ist die Rakete vor 2 Tagen eingeschlagen. Die kam hier oben durch das Dach.
This is where the rocket hit the building. It entered through the roof and tore off part of the neighboring house's front, 2 floors down. It's important to understand that by now, more than 7,000 rockets have been fired at Israel since the conflict began, and it's only been 3 weeks. Some people believe that the Iron Dome makes Israelis feel secure enough that they don't need to react militarily. But seeing this and other sides just shows how wrong that perception is. The threat posed by these rockets is real and imminent.
Zum Glück war die Wohnung seit rund einem Jahr.
Fortunately, the apartment had been unoccupied for about a year, meaning that no one died in the attack. However, the rocket did not just damage this one apartment, but it also affected the neighboring ones.
Die Raketen, die Terrororganisation Hamas massenweise aus dem
The rockets that Hamas fires in large numbers from the Gaza Strip are meant to kill as many Israeli civilians as possible.
stärker.
Despite being underdeveloped, these rockets cause significant damage.
Nicht nur die Wohnung meines Bekannten.
You can only fully grasp their devastation when you look beneath the blue plastic and the Israeli flags the military installed to calm the neighbors and prevent panic from spreading.
Planen und unter die Flaggen wirft, die da vom Militär außen angebracht wurden, um die Nachbarn eben etwas zu beruhigen. Wenn man also mal so eine komplett zerstörte Wohnung...
When you visit a completely destroyed apartment like this, you start to realize just how dangerous the situation is. The rocket alarm goes off every day, forcing people, young and old, to run for shelter. I run for shelter several times a day myself.
Na gut, dann habe ich also meine Sachen gepackt und bin weitergefahren, wieder zurück nach Tel Aviv.
After the military asked us to leave, I packed up and drove back to Tel Aviv. While driving, minding my own business,
Und dann
another rocket alarm. I pulled over to the side of the street and ran to the nearest house with an open door. The place is crowded with people, and this has sadly become the norm since October 7th. Thousands of rockets have been fired at the civil population since that day.
eine der Raketen wurde leider nicht...
Unfortunately, one of the missiles was not intercepted by the Iron Dome and either seriously injured or killed 3 people. I can't confirm the details at the moment, but it was a massive barrage of rockets. I'm only now getting the chance to record again. The rocket alarm just went off and there was a loud bang. I stopped the car in the middle of the road and fled inside.
Und dann haben sich alle reingeflüchtet in ein Gebäude.
But now I'll keep driving. Let me quickly get back into the car before I hold up the traffic here.
Bis zu einem gewissen Grad probiert man dann...
To some extent, you try to maintain a normal lifestyle. So instead of focusing on the threat, I worked on the material I had recorded. And then I got back into the car to head to yet another appointment I had set up.
Ich mich nochmal ins Auto gesetzt, weil ich nochmal zu einem Termin wollte.
So wieder Raketenalarm und jetzt ganz blöd.
Another rocket alarm. And this time I'm in a really tough spot because there are no shelters nearby. I think I'll just head to the park, maybe lay on the ground and hope for the best.
Weil wie gesagt, hier kommt im Moment ganz schön viel durch, der Iron Dome.
Unfortunately, quite a few rockets are not being intercepted at the moment. It's a truly dangerous situation now. I'll try to find at least some protection, maybe under a tree.
Jetzt mal irgendwo sich verstecken, möglichst unter irgendwelchen Bäumen. Das ist ja mal eine beschissene Situation. Wie gesagt, es geht die ganze Zeit so.
This is the reality Israel faces all the time, yet so many Westerners expect Israel not to react at all to this massive threat.
Die Leute um mich herum lagen teilweise flach auf dem...
Some people around me were laying flat on the ground, others sat beneath trees. And of course, I was painfully aware of how little protection those trees offered. Remember, it was today that I've seen what happens when a rocket hits a house or when shrapnel flies through the air. Of course, a tree offers more protection than nothing. But in the end, it only shields you from shrapnel from one side. Sitting under the tree actually felt like being served on a platter. You just hope that the rockets Hamas fires from Gaza get intercepted and that the shrapnel, which can easily cut through flesh and bones, doesn't fall anywhere near you.
Zufällig neben einem runterfallen.
Jetzt auch noch ein Raketenalarm dazu.
Yet another rocket alarm. I'll follow the others.
Wäsche.
I just wanted to do my laundry, and now there are rockets flying at us again. What a sick situation. I don't know if you can hear it, but there's a lot of booming up there.
Yeah, it was like crusty.
Und das Verrückte an der Situation hier ist ganz einfach.
The maddening part of the situation is that there was yet another massive rocket alarm. It was so loud that we heard it even in the basement. I tried to keep my spirits up because I don't want to let the terrorists ruin my mood.
Und
And after the alarm, when it gets quiet, you just go back and try to pretend everything is all right. But deep down, you're just hoping the Islamists won't fire more rockets at you and possibly hit and kill you.
Man stellt sich das doch mal vor, was wäre denn, wenn
Just imagine what would happen if our neighbors in Europe decided to fire thousands of missiles at us.
schießen. Dann würden wir doch auch
We would certainly react, even though we of course prefer peace and don't want to fight a war.
wollen.
But we would feel forced to react if someone kept firing deadly missiles at us.
Immer weiter und weiter und weiter schießen.
And that is the conflict Israel finds itself in. They don't want to go into Gaza. Gaza was voluntarily returned in 2005. But unfortunately, Land for Peace did not work out because the Islamists started shooting rockets at Israel right away instead of building up their own country. Now, try to imagine what this history tells Israelis today. Land for Peace sounds like an empty promise with no meaning behind it. Israelis have almost 20 years of proof that Land for Peace does not work. Hamas hasn't just been firing rockets since October 7th. They've been firing deadly rockets at Israeli civilians for a very long period of time. Meanwhile, Hamas keeps the resources needed to build a healthy society, such as infrastructure, chemicals, even water pipes, only for themselves while suppressing their own people and filling their minds with propaganda. They use their resources, many of them gifted by the international community, to kill Jews, not to uplift anyone's lives. Honestly, anyone who fails to condemn this is part of the problem.
Ich verabschiede mich.
I'll say goodbye for now and get back to you tomorrow or the day after tomorrow.